Why have we evolved something as useless and seemingly destructive as a propensity for carrying on an unanswered romantic obsession? How exactly was prolonged, unrequited love useful in our hunter-gatherer days? If romantic obsession is reciprocated, there's a clear evolutionary advantage to both parties. The two partners will stay together long enough to create some children and likely raise them to a point of relative self-sustenance. However, if romantic obsession is unanswered, it clearly does not pay in the evolutionary terms. But romantic obsession does not simply go away, as would make sense for our survival and reproductive success. It only gets amplified. Much energy is subsequently wasted on fruitless pursuits by the affected person. There is clearly no advantage for anyone to exhibit this phenomenon in today's world, at least the world I live in. Unrequited love results in all sorts of bad things, ranging from months and years of depression all the way up to restraining orders, suicides, and violent crime. So what kind of nature's trick is this? What exactly was so different back then that created this mechanism of obsession and actually encouraged it to flourish even if it was unanswered? I think that this is because relationships today are different from the ones we had in our hunter-gatherer days in one very important way. Most of the personal relationships in the civilized world today have very little to do with our physical survival. Sure, we have friends and lovers, but our relationships with them, for the most part, do not affect how we obtain food, shelter, and protection from enemies. Instead, we get our food and shelter through an institution that we collectively call work. We get our protection from enemies from our governments, our laws, and our law enforcement agencies, not from our friends. I imagine that things were very different in the past. Imagine a world in which you have to dig around for food in a forest or out in the savannah, and your partners in this business are all your friends and potential lovers. Imagine that while foraging, you have encountered a scary neighboring tribe that speaks a different language, has a different culture, and wants to throw rocks at you. Imagine that somehow, through a virtue of one of your friends or potential lovers, you were rescued from the situation. Imagine that you were hungry and weak for days, and then suddenly one of your potential lovers encountered food and shared it with you. Those are all very simple and generic examples, but they illustrate my point. In the past, people's relationships have had more opportunities to develop in surprising ways because survival was mixed into them. I'm going to guess that people had more reasons to bond together than they do today for reasons of survival. Obsessive romantic behavior probably had a very different meaning in the world of our past. When you are obsessed with someone romantically, you naturally wish to strengthen your relationship with them. You wish to help them, to make them happy, to somehow bond with them. In the world of our past, there would have been plenty of opportunities to do this. You could give them food, or you could tell them a location of a source of food. You could you could entertain them with a story. You could protect them from an attack of a neighboring tribe. You could spot and kill a poisonous bug that was crawling up to them. You could cure them from disease. All that would have mattered is if they thought you did. But what opportunities do you have for such benevolent actions toward the object of your affection today? Well, you have very few. Usually, they already have everything they need for their survival and much more. They have a job in supermarkets for an uninterrupted supply of food. You can still try to entertain them with a story, but there are fewer opportunities to do so since they now have gazillions of books, movies, and TV shows to choose from that stimulate their imagination and take care of all their entertainment needs. You can no longer protect them from an attack of a neighboring tribe. That's what police are for. And besides, there are no neighboring tribes to speak of. You can't protect them from a poisonous bug because there aren't any in our homes for the most part. You cannot cure them from disease. That's what doctors are for. Again, those are all very rough and cliche examples, but I hope that you get my point. Unrequited love today is useless because you cannot give the object of your affection anything that they truly need, be it in a physical or an emotional sense, in order to strengthen your relationship with them and make them like you. But this was not always so. I believe that there was a time in our history when unrequited love might have actually been considered something other than an annoyance and a disease of the mind that it is today. There was a time when a propensity to develop unrequited love was an evolutionary advantage, due to the circumstances of human life, but that is clearly no longer so. Does this mean that people who fall in love deeply will be outbred? Does this mean that romantic love as we know will eventually die, disappear from human consciousness and human experience? Sadly, it may be so.